I've experienced sleep paralysis quite a few times, but one particular incident made me reconsider my skepticism about the paranormal. It happened when I was 12. My family often had open discussions about paranormal activities. They never denied their existence, unlike me. I always clung to the belief that science could explain everything. Despite living on a street infamous for its high number of suicides and murders, 10 suicides and 2 murders within 2 years, to be precise, I dismissed any supernatural explanations with the firm science. I had developed a habit of covering my face with a blanket while sleeping. Somehow, my mom always sensed when I was having sleep paralysis and would move my body to break the spell. Now I wonder if it was my mom every time. One morning, as usual, I woke up with my face covered by the blanket, but I quickly realized something was wrong. I couldn't move. Sleep paralysis had me in its grip again. Despite my familiarity with it, the experience always terrified me. I was sweating and struggling to breathe under the stifling blanket. Panic set in, and I genuinely thought that day would be my last. Then a baby-sized hand touched my forehead. It was warm. Through the thin fabric of the blanket, illuminated by the morning sunlight, I saw the clear shadow of a tiny hand. Slowly it moved away, and the paralysis broke. I could move again. I frantically searched for an explanation. My younger brother was my first thought, but he wasn't in my room. Besides, his hands were bigger than mine. What really unsettled me was my mom's and grandmother's reactions. They didn't dismiss my story. Instead, they focused on solutions to help me avoid such experiences in the future, never providing a logical explanation. My mom had experienced worse things, and I knew I'd eventually share more of our stories. But this incident stood out because it was the only time I felt and saw something so vividly. The days following that morning were filled with an eerie silence in our household. The usual sounds of life seemed distant, as if muffled by an unseen force. I became hyper-aware of every creak and whisper in the old house, each one sending chills down my spine. One evening, my curiosity got the better of me. I approached my mom while she was in the kitchen, her back turned to me as she prepared dinner. The comforting aroma of spices filled the air, but it did little to calm my nerves. "Mom, can we talk about what happened the other morning?" I asked hesitantly. She paused, knife hovering over a half-chopped onion. "What do you want to know, sweetie?" I swallowed hard. "Have you ever experienced anything like that? You know, the tiny hand?" She turned to face me, her eyes filled with a mixture of concern and something else. "Fear? Maybe, yes, I have many times. Our family has always been sensitive to these things, but we don't talk about them openly because it's not something we can explain." I felt a chill run down my spine. "But why us? Why this house?" She sighed, wiping her hands on a dish towel. "This house has a history. Long before we moved in, it was known for strange occurrences. The previous owners left abruptly, but no one knew why. We only found out after we moved in. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, the blanket pulled up to my chin, eyes wide open as I stared at the ceiling. Every shadow seemed to move, every sound seemed amplified. The tiny hand's touch replayed in my mind over and over again. A week later, I decided to dig deeper. I spent hours in the local library, sifting through old newspapers and records. What I found was disturbing. The house we lived in had a dark past. It was built in the early 1900s by a wealthy family who mysteriously disappeared. Subsequent owners reported strange occurrences, objects moving on their own, whispers in the night, and sightings of a small child. One article, in particular, caught my attention. It detailed the disappearance of a child named Lily in the 1950s. She was last seen playing in the yard of our house. Her parents searched for her frantically, but she was never found. The case went cold, and the family moved away, leaving the house abandoned for years. I felt a connection to Lily, as if her spirit had reached out to me. That night, armed with newfound knowledge, I decided to confront whatever was haunting us. I set up a makeshift altar in my room with candles and a photo of Lily I found in the newspaper. As midnight approached, I sat cross-legged on the floor, the flickering candle light casting eerie shadows on the walls. I closed my eyes and spoke softly, "Lily, if you're here, I want to help you. Show me a sign." The room grew cold, and a faint whisper filled the air.
"Help me."
My heart raced, but I stayed calm. "What do you need, Lily?"
"Find me."
The voice replied, barely audible. Suddenly, the candles went out, plunging the room into darkness. I felt a cold breeze pass over me, and the tiny hand touched my forehead once more. This time it wasn't frightening, it felt like a plea for help. Over the next few days I searched the house, looking for any clues about Lily's whereabouts. In the attic, hidden behind old boxes and forgotten belongings, I found a small, dusty chest. Inside was a collection of Lily's toys and a diary. The diary detailed Lily's life and her mysterious disappearance. On the last page, she wrote about a man who visited her at night, whispering strange things and leading her to a hidden room in the basement. My heart pounded as I realized the basement was the only place I hadn't searched. That night I armed myself with a flashlight and ventured into the basement. The air was thick with dust, and the smell of mildew was overpowering. I searched every corner, tapping on walls for any hidden compartments. Finally, behind an old shelf, I found a small, concealed door. I pushed it open, and a wave of cold air hit me. Inside was a tiny, dimly lit room. In the center was a small skeleton surrounded by old, decayed toys. Tears filled my eyes as I realized I had found Lily. I carefully gathered her remains and took them upstairs. My mom helped me arrange a proper burial in our backyard. As we laid Lily to rest, I felt a profound sense of peace. The haunting stopped, and the house felt lighter, as if a great burden had been lifted. From that day on, I never doubted the existence of the paranormal. Lily's spirit had reached out to me for help, and in finding her, I had given her the peace she deserved. My family and I continued to live in the house, but it was no longer a place of fear. It was a place of healing and remembrance. Years later, I still think of Lily and the tiny hand that touched my forehead. I often visit her grave, leaving flowers and toys, a reminder that she is not forgotten. The experience changed me, opening my mind to the mysteries of the world and the unseen forces that surround us. Thank you for tuning in. Please leave a like and subscribe, and special thanks to lik Subliminals for submitting their story. I will see you again next week.